Alright, here goes the fun. The first section is to solve by factoring. And on the first one, it looks like somebody already factored it for you. So all that's left to do is to take the first parenthesis, set it to 0, the second parenthesis, set it to 0, and you'll get your two answers of 4 and 5. Okay? Number 2, same thing. They've already put it into factored form for you. So you're just going to take the first parenthesis, set it to 0, and you're going to take the second parenthesis and set it to 0. And those are your two answers that you should get. Number 3, it looks like we get to factor it ourselves now. Okay, so I need two numbers that multiply to make the last number but add together to make the middle. Okay, so it's either 6 and 2 or 3 and 4. Well, a 6 and a 2 can make a positive 4, and the way that would happen is if I had a positive 6 and a negative 2. So let me double check that. Positive 6, negative 2, when I add them, yes. When I multiply them, yes. Then I just take each parenthesis, set it to 0, and I'm going to get negative 6 and positive 2. Okay, number 4, same thing. We've got to figure out the magic combination of numbers ourselves. So there's a B now instead of an X or an M, so a B and a B. And I need two numbers that multiply for negative 32, but add to negative 4. So what makes it 32? Okay, 8 and 4 work, right? 8 times 4 is 32. And if I have a negative 8 and a positive 4, then when I add those together, they will also give me that middle number combination, which is what I need. So I'll set each of these equal to 0 and get B is 8 and B is negative 4. Okay? Moving on, number 5. This one looks like it might be not so much fun. The first thing I'm going to do is rewrite it and bring the, I want to bring that 40x over here, and I want that to be a 0 so that it's just like all these other ones. You really do need that to be a 0. Now the next thing I'm going to do is hope that 8 goes into all of those numbers. And you know what? 8 does go into all three of these, so I'm going to factor that out to the front first. And that's going to make my life and this problem a whole lot easier. So once you take an 8 out of here, here, and here by dividing it out, now I can factor this like the ones above, okay? So two numbers that multiply to negative 6 but add to positive 5, okay? I think that's just going to be a 6 and a 1, and I would need a positive 6 minus 1. Positive 6 minus 1 is a positive 5. And so then I take this and set it equal to 0, and I take this and I set it equal to 0, and I get negative 6 and positive 1. I can't take that and set it equal to 0 because it doesn't equal 0. When does 8 equal 0? Well, never, so you don't even have to worry about that, okay? Now, number 6. Same thing, I'm going to move people around. That's an n squared, and then I'm going to call that minus 11n plus 24 equals 0. I just need it all on the same side so I can try to reason through it. And I need two numbers that multiply to that, but then add to that. Okay, it's 6 and 4? No. 12 and 2? No. 8 and 3. A minus 8 and a minus 3 will give me that negative 11, but when I multiply them, it does give me the positive 24. Some of y'all are going to be really good at this, and some of you it's going to take a long time to get really good at this, but let me tell you, if you get good at factoring, golly, I mean, there's nothing in math that can stop you later, because my students that struggle as seniors in calculus, if they're struggling, it's because they never got good at this. And they're slow, and it takes them a while, and then it frustrates them. So try to get good at this year and really practice factoring, and it'll just help you so much down the line. All right, number 7. Okay, solve each equation with the quadratic formula. Okay, so here we're going to do what is my A, B, and C, and then plug it in. So A is minus 4, positive 1, 3. So minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Now, inside of this square root, that's going to become a 1 plus 48, so I think it's a 49 over negative 8. And now we just solve it out. So the square root of 49 is 7, so I need negative 1 plus 7 over negative 8. And I need negative 1 minus 7 over negative 8. And then I just math it out. So this will become a 6/8, which is a negative 3/4. This will become a 1, I think. Yep, so there's my two answers from number 7. Number 8, the A is a negative 6, the B is an 8, and the C is a negative 2. So notice if you tried to factor these, it would not be easy. So I'm glad that we're doing the quadratic formula in this section. Minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared, which is 64, minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A, which means, ugh, that looks gross. Okay, so 64 minus, what's 24 times 2? Is that 48? So 64 minus 48. What is that? 58. Is that a 16? Okay, so this is negative 8 plus or minus the square root of 16 over negative 12. That's a 4, right? So we're going to do negative 8 plus 4 over negative 12 and negative 8 minus 4 over negative 12. So this would be a negative 4 over 12, which is a 1/3. And this would be a negative 12 over negative 12, which is a 1. So those are my two answers I get on number 8. Number 9, the A is a negative 1, the B is a positive 1, and the C is an 18. So minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. So it looks something like that. This is going to be a 1 plus whatever 4 times 18 is. Is that a 272? Wait, let me make sure. Let me make sure. 18 times 4, that is a 72. So a 1 plus a 72. So negative 1 plus or minus the square root of 73 all over negative 2. The square root of 73 does not break down, or I don't think it breaks down, and I'm not going to have a calculator, so I'm just going to rewrite it. Negative 1 plus the square root of 73 over negative 2, or, and whatever you want to write here, negative 1 minus the square root of 73 over negative 2. That's how I'm going to leave my answers, everybody, because I don't have a calculator, and you probably won't either. And we don't know the square root of 73, so just leave it like that. That's perfectly fine. All right, number 10 is the last quadratic formula one. A is 5, B is negative 9, C is negative 7. So what does this mean? Minus B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4 times A times C all over 2A. Okay, so here we've got some interesting math to do as well. It's going to be 81 plus whatever 20 times 7 is, which is, I think, 140. So 140 plus the 81 is going to be, what is 8 plus 4? Isn't that 12? 12, so is that a 221? Okay, so it's going to be 9 plus or minus the square root of 221 over 10. Now, 221, is that something significant, like maybe, let me think about my 15 times 15. Nope, I think this is another one. This is another one that I don't think I can get to break down. 140, yeah, I can't get that to break down. So once again, I'm just going to leave my answer as 9 plus the square root of 221 over 10, and 9 minus the square root of 221 over 10. If that breaks down and y'all figured it out, please let me know. I'm looking at it and I can't think of a way to break that into anything. So I would just have left it like that. All right, now we move on to the fun ones. Completing the square. This is the new stuff for you. So your first step is going to be to move the whole number, the constant, to the other side. Okay, so I moved the 55 over. Now we have to insert a number here. The way we get that number is we take half of what's in the middle, which is a 4, and I'm sorry, it's an 8, and then we square 8, which is a 64. So I just added a random 64 here. Whatever you do to one side, you have to do to the other. So now I add it to the other side, and now I factor that down. Now this should factor into the same thing, and it does, because 8 times 8 is 64, 8 plus 8 is 16. Remember, that's the goal, is for that to be the same. And then you can just write it as b plus 8 quantity squared, and you math this side out over here. Is that a 9? Yes, I think it's a 9. So that's what we would have. From here, to solve it out, we would now take the square root of both sides. Don't forget to put plus or minus in front of that root 9, and we'll have a b plus 8 equals plus or minus 3. Then I will move the 8 over, minus 8 minus 8, and so b is positive 3 minus 8, which is negative 5, or it's negative 3 minus 8, which is negative 11. So that's how we complete the square. All right, let's go again slow on number 12. We have x squared plus 4x, move that 77 over. Now we insert. To insert a term, you take half of this one and square it. So half of 4 is 2, 2 squared is 4. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other side. Now this should factor into the same thing twice, and it does. It factors into x plus 2 times x plus 2. So I'm going to write it as x plus 2 squared. And then over here, that looks like an 81. Now to solve, we're going to take the square root of both sides, plus, minus, and we're going to have x plus 2 equals plus or minus whatever the square root of 81 is, which is 9. Then I'm going to minus 2 from both sides, and x would be positive 9 minus 2, which is 7, or negative 9 minus 2, which is negative 11. So those are my two answers. Number 13, x squared plus 20x equals negative 99. Okay, started by moving that constant over. Fill in the space, so half of this is 10. 10 times 10 is a 100. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other, and then we factor that down. That factors into x plus 10. Yep. And on this side, that's a 1. Square root both sides. Don't forget your plus or minus over here. This becomes x plus 10 equals plus or minus 1. When I subtract the 10 from both sides, I'm going to get a positive 1 minus a 10, and I'm going to get a negative 1 minus a 10, and those are my two answers. And the last one for completing the square, n squared minus 4n equals positive 32. Okay, I need to fill in the missing blank. So half of that is a negative 2, but a negative 2 squared is still a positive 4. Whatever you do to one side, do to the other. Okay? Factor this down. This may be a little different. When you factor this down, you need a positive 4 when you multiply, but a negative 4 when you add them, which means that's how that factors down. It's really n minus 2 times n minus 2. If you don't believe me, write this out, FOIL it out, and you'll see that I'm right. And then we do this side and get a 36. Now what? Now we take the square root of both sides, and we have n minus 2 equals plus or minus 6, right? Plus or minus 6. And now to move the 2 over, I need to add 2 to both sides. So I'm going to get positive 6 plus 2, which is 8, or negative 6 plus 2, which is negative 4. And those are my 2 answers. All right, cool. So hopefully you're going to have a favorite method, and the ones that are your favorite, you'll be really good at. The ones that aren't, you still have to work on, because believe me, they're going to make you do all of this at one point or another.